there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Michael's 3D World. Today I have an interesting one for you. I had a major meltdown on one of my CR10s, and it wasn't due to anything that the machine did wrong. It was the fact that the print let go. I was doing a rather large print and it let go, and decided to create, I'll just call it a lava flow around the print head. And I'm going to see, because if you printed for any length of time at all, eventually this may happen to you. And I want to show you if it's possible to recover from it. Now, I haven't done anything like this before. I haven't recovered from anything like this before, but we're going to take a look at it together and see if I can figure it out together. I think one of my major tools I'm going to need, though, is my heat gun. And we'll see if we can actually get this thing apart and get it operational again. I need to get it back online because I've got several print jobs I want to do, and I need this thing running and to do the volume that I'm currently wanting to do. But I'll have to show you what all went wrong, and I think you'll be impressed. I was impressed as to how majorly wrong it went, but also I think I can fix it. I think we can bring it back around. So let's jump in and see if we can make this happen. Now I want to give you some idea as to what happened here. I was printing a rather large print. This was it here. I come downstairs to look and see how things are going, and I noticed this thing has slid around, and that this head was actually over here, jammed up tight against this area here, and just boom, 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 and the belts were skipping, and this thing was vibrating and doing, it was just doing some really nasty stuff on me. And so I stopped it. And lo and behold, I look at this print head and I go, holy smokes. I'll get you down here a little closer in a minute. But yeah, this had come loose from the print surface. Caused me a lot of headaches here. And then this here is all loose. All the vibration from all the chatter and from the belt skipping had caused all my adjustment wheels, all but one, to come off. There they are, just laying here along with the spring. So it did a lot of really neat stuff. And when I mean by neat is really bad. But the table's pretty easy to fix. Let's put some springs back under it, put the adjustment wheels back on, and we can bring that back around no problem. This is going to be the area of great concern. Let me zoom in a little bit and get you a closer look at that. As you can see here, this is normally where your nozzle would be, somewhere up in this area here. But you can see how much, this is actually the silicone boot here that has been pushed away, molded into this lava flow of plastic PLA. And it is really thick and all over the place. This really caused a lot of really weird things to happen. This is completely loose now. So we're going to go ahead and see if I can unbolt the rest of this off of here. See if I can free this up so I can actually get to some of the componentry and start unbolting what I can to get this freed up. Now this is, if you watch one of my other videos, this particular part right here is an aftermarket printed piece. We'll call it aftermarket. It was off Thingiverse. It actually converted it so I could have my two fans separate. I could take this apart and work on it. I can actually get to this feed drive here separate, take it apart without disassembling everything. This has been working really well. The fact that my print came loose from the print bed was my only issue with this. Now I'm going to go ahead and start taking this apart piece by piece so I can see what parts I can get off of here. I can't really use the heat gun on the PLA because it'll just melt it. But I think if I can get this off, and get some of this out of the way, I might be able to actually salvage everything here. So let's dig into that and see what I can come up with. Now, if you don't have one of these iFixIT kits, I highly encourage you to get one. They've got all the little screwdriver handles and all the types of bits you would need to work on one of these. They come in very handy. I'll leave a link in the description down below where you can obtain your own. But I'm just going to start pulling some pieces off here. I'm going to see what I need to pull off. Looks like we can pull this whole glob off of here. Now you can really see what went on here. That is a lot of PLA piled around and mashed around everywhere. I'm going to see if I can lower this back down and work on it on its own table to give me a decent working surface to start playing around with. Alright, now that I have it down off the backing plate, which I'll have to readjust those rollers because they seem to be a little bit out of adjustment right now, which is not a big deal. We can fix that. I think what I'm going to do first, let's just go ahead and start pulling some fans off, get them out of our way. I'm going to pull this apart because this will allow this aluminum piece to come out, and it can be a separate piece that I can deal with. The only thing holding this together to it now is because I got this wire all melted down in here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this screw out. This is a pinch screw that holds it around the thermal brake here. What would make life really easy is if this would just come loose now, but I don't think it will. That's pretty frozen in there. I have a feeling I'll be printing another one of these because I don't think I can get this apart without absolutely melting things. Alright, we're starting to get a little closer. We got a bulk of it away. I can see the tip here now. I kind of get an idea where the tip's at so I can know where to cut from there. And this here is not really cutting as much as it actually just vibrates a lot and creates a lot of heat, which kind of melts its way through, which is actually working out pretty well for me. Now, as you can see here, here's all the debris that came off of that print head. Quite a bit of PLA there. Quite a mess. It took a little while. I ain't kidding you, about 45 minutes. The silicone boot here obviously got damaged, but that's okay because I have another one right here. The same way with the tip, I cut into it a little bit. So I got a new tip as well. Not as big deal. I have those in stock. So we'll toss those things away. The other thing I had to do is I ended up cutting my housing in half to get it apart. That's okay. I can print one of those. As you can see, it's not a lot of material there. It'll print out pretty fast. Anyway, I've got this piece here to clean up. It came apart pretty easily. I heated it up with a heat gun to take some screws out. Your heat gun is your friend here. Also, the thermal brake goes easily come apart. Also, this came apart with a little bit of heat as well. We'll do some cleaning up so it goes back together very nicely. Once that's all done, we'll be able to start reassembling it. Alrighty. Now, what I've found is you get a little bit of sticky residue that's all over everything, and usually it's from the fumes and whatnot. I don't know, call it a kickoff from the PLA resin, or PLA, not resin, PLA material. This is actually a gun cleaning thing for a 22 rifle. And I'm just running this through here because it still has some of that sticky residue in there. And I'm just threading it through with some acetone on it. And that's going to get out the rest of my stickiness. Now, a lot of times you have to heat these up to run them through. But, you know, to get everything taken care of. But I've found that if you just take some acetone in here, I bet I can thread it in the mating part once I'm done here. I'm just running it through, letting it cut its way out. And you see how black that came out there? See how black that is right there versus back here? Now this wouldn't thread in there before. Let's see if it'll thread in now. I mean, it would thread in there, but it was sticky. Look at that. Now I can thread it all the way in there by hand. Perfect. And I can probably thread my tip in by hand now. Perfect. This was all sticky inside here. It wouldn't thread in. Now it goes right in. Just the way we want it. Cool. We can reassemble this now. I've got it all freed up and working like it should. That's pretty cool. Let's reassemble it now. Now I got to replace the thermocouple and the temp sensor. So I'll leave a link in the description below. I stock about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6, a half dozen of each. They're relatively cheap. You can buy them in a bulk package off Amazon, I'm thinking, is where I got them. I'll leave a link below. But it never hurts to have some of these laying around, just because you never know when you might need it. And I'd rather have it, not need it, than need it and not have it. So that's why they're relatively cheap. If you're going to have more than one printer, these pretty much fit on every printer Creality makes. So the wiring length may change, but that'd be about it. But yeah, we're going to hook this back in just a little bit, and we'll be moving forward. Now you may have had to heat this up to get this out, but then you could take this same brush we just cleaned the threads out with. You can run it right in here with some acetone on it, because this would not go in beforehand. And now look, slides right in, ready for our set screw. We're going to go ahead and reinstall our temp sensor. So the temp sensor, there's a little hole right here, and there's a thread above it. So what this does is it goes into the hole. Should go into the hole. Now if you find this little hole where your temp sensor goes into to be a little bit too tight, I took a 5/64 drill bit, and that seems to clean it out just a little bit, just enough to make everything work. We reinstall our little Phillips screw here. You got to be careful not to over tighten it. You don't want to smash through your wires and cause a direct short, and it won't pick up it won't sense the temperature. But now we got our wiring hook back up. We're in good shape there. The other thing we need to do is we've got our old Capricorn tube here, and I use Capricorn tubing for this. We need to cut another one the exact same length. We can shove that right down in there, just like that. That assembly is ready to go back on the machine. Now that that's done, we can go ahead and reassemble our drive. So I've slipped this little guide tube piece back in here. Let me pop it back out and I'll show you. So that's where your Capricorn tube is there. This slides right in on top, and then this slides right back into place. And that's your assembly there. Now we can go ahead and put our gears and everything back on it. I want to give you guys a good shot of how this goes together. So as you can see here, this little spring and nut go back in here. There's a little knob right there on the end of this thing here. This particular part of your gear drive or your filament drive just slips right over here, over that gear. And this, you just lay it right on top of that knob, and then you can actually adjust it later. But that gives you your spring tension on your filament. We have another ball bearing that goes right there. And then we're ready to put this back together just the way it came apart. That's what I like about this little thumb screw drive here. That's what I like about this little screwdriver, is it gives you enough torque to tighten things up without getting too crazy. Because this tiny stuff, it's really easy to over tighten it. This stuff just needs to be snug. Now you should be able to roll this without much interference in anything. That seems to roll pretty good. Now that's reassembled. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is investigate where the thermocouple wires come from and the temp sensor wire comes from. I'm going to go ahead and undo these two little zip ties. And there again, I'll leave you a link to the place where you can buy the new zip ties. We've got one on this end of the wiring harness here. What we're trying to do is get these two wires, find out where they go through the harness here. And looks like they just plug in. So in order to get to them, I think I'm going to take this cover loose so we can see what's going on underneath. Now I can easily see where these plug in. Alright, it's time to reattach this back to the where it almost fell off of. What I've done here is there's the offset nut down here. There's a little hex on the back wheel. We've got that adjusted so this is back to rigid again. We've got this mounted back on. This will actually rotate to wherever I want it to be. And I've got the wiring here all hooked up, ready to go with its ends on it. So that's ready to be plugged back in. Anyway, I got to fish this back through the stuff here, whatever you want to call this stuff. Wire management harness. I'm not sure how easy this is going to be to do. Okay, we've re-hooked up the thermocouple wires and the temperature sensor wire, and we put this cover back on, plug those all back in. We've got this wire secured. The excess wire, what I did is I doubled it back and I slid it up into this casing, so it's carefully and it's got a gentle bend clear back in here. Should work all right. Time will tell. As you can see here, we've got this all fastened back up into place, waiting to hook the fans on, and my fan shroud back onto here. We'll put our new silicone boot on at that time. Plus we have the rest of the hardware here. And this is all that's left to bolt it back together. We'll put the two fans on. We should be able to plug it back in and get ready to rock and roll. See the iFixIT kit on the right, or the storage tray. And use the lid as a storage tray. And my son actually showed me that. Kind of a smart thing to do, ain't it? Another thing, if you're going to have one of these machines, another thing I recommend to have is a nice little nut bolt assortment. This is all metric. I'll leave a link in the description down below is where you can get one of these. We're real close. As you can see here, I'm printing my new fan shroud because I obviously had to cut the other one in half. There'll be a link to where you can find this on Thingiverse. If you're going to convert a machine over to one of these, this is what it'll look like when it's all done. Everything you see here in yellow would be in white as I rebuild this machine. I would highly recommend, if you are going to convert your machine over and you have some kind of incident like that and you only have one machine, print yourself a couple of these just to make sure you have a backup. Otherwise you won't be able to print yourself another one. I have the luxury of having more than one machine, so I can easily print any spare parts on any of my other machines as I need them, so I don't print any spares for myself. Well, that's this so far. I'm going to let this thing finish printing, As soon as that's done printing, it's going to be another couple of hours, probably 2.5, 3 hours. We'll finish putting this back together. We will plug it in, see if we can get temperature back up, see if the temperature sensor will pick up the sensor, pick up the temperature, I should say, and then we'll be back in business. I think we'll re-level the bed, we'll auto home it, re-level the bed, and then we'll try to do some printing on it, make sure everything still works like it should. Awesome so far. So far, it looks like with minimal expense, we'll have this thing back up and on the road again. We're able to reuse our block, the thermal brake, everything inside the drive is fine. I've got a new silicone boot that we'll stick on here. I could go ahead and stick that on here now. So that's all ready to go. But it's always nice to have a few spare parts. Silicone boot, I have these wires in stock. I don't have any, I have a couple of spare fans in stock actually, so if a fan goes bad I can change out the fan. But it's no fun being broken when you want to be printing. So we'll get this one back up and going again, and we'll be good. A few of you have asked me how I printed this roller, and I'll tell you exactly how I printed it. I printed this, as you can see, I printed this roller with it standing on end with support around the bottom, and that's how I printed that piece. This piece here, I printed it just like this, and then I used support everywhere, so it had a little support underneath the thread, under the bottom, and in the middle here. And in the middle, those just knock out, or you can leave them, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt it if it's there. And the nut, I printed it with it sitting flat like this. And as you can see, it turns out really well. That's how I printed all these. I like the ball bearing rollers. I have ball bearing rollers on all of them. These are just little, I think, an AVIX6 bearing, maybe AVIX 5. For those of you that have asked about this, anyway, that's how I did it on all mine. All right, we've got our new housing printed. This will be on Thingiverse. I'll leave a link in the description down below. I actually ended up printing this out once, and it fit on here really tight. So I reprinted it, and now it fits absolutely perfect. It'll snug, slide right on there. I'll be able to put it right where I want it. And then I'll be able to tighten down this nut, this little bolt here. That's basically a pinch clamp onto here, and that'll hold it in place. I can reinstall my fans, put this back underneath the heat sink, hot tip, or whatever you want to call this, back up in here and bolt that back in place, and then we'll be able to plug it in and give it a try. Now, one thing I will tell you to do, if you go to print this, what I did on the one off Thingiverse, depending on what your printer does, if this comes out too tight on here, this particular one in my Multimeter Cura, I stretched this out, this whole part here, out this direction. I expanded it 103%. So just 3% over what it's normally drawn at. And then this slid on here, just as you see here, slides on just the way I want it, not too tight. I can get this in position, and then I can actually tighten this screw down and make it pinch on there and lock itself in place. The first one was a little tight. I tried to put it on there, and it snapped this ear right off. So I had to make some adjustments. Made those adjustments. Now we're ready to go back together. Cool stuff. So now all I got left to do is put this where I want it positioned, this direction, which is just a little bit above, flush up top here, this area here to here. I went just about, a 1/16 inch above that. Whoops, can you see? Yeah, you can see. Where that cooling fins are, and that put everything where I wanted it to be. And that seems to work out pretty good. So let's go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and put that back together and put the fans back on, and then we'll be able to put it back in its home, reposition it, level the bed, and start our first print. Everything looks pretty good. I think we're ready to plug it back in and home it and see what we can get. Alrighty, we got her plugged back in, bed leveled. Obviously we did we're doing a print. I'm going right in, right out of the gate. You guys are gonna think I'm nuts, but I'm going right into an 8-hour print, right out of the gate. So yeah, this will be printing overnight. You guys would go, wow, why would you possibly trust that overnight now? Look at it, it's working fine. It's laying down a great first pass. Should stick pretty good, it looks like. I like how things are looking so far. So we're gonna go from there. This is the exact same thing I'm printing right over here. Just printing the same, another one on this CR10 right here. Now this CR10 is the only one that I don't have the Wham Bam surface on it. I've still got the original Creality magnetic bed. I am a bigger fan of the Wham Bam surface, print surface. I have the Wham Bam on all the rest of my printers, obviously except for the CR30 print mill. But yeah, so far so good. We'll let this big dog print. We'll check it in the morning, and we'll go from there. But yeah, it looks like it's printing just fine. The temperature sensor's working. Let's go over here to the control. Over here, we're printing at 210 nozzle temp. That's what I usually print at with my PLA, in a 60 Celsius bed temp. But as you can see, my temp sensor and the heating unit all work flawlessly right now. They're all working good. So we're off to the races. Everything's awesome. Well, there you have it, folks. It printed my pistol stand just fine, flawlessly, overnight print. We're back off to the races. As you saw there in this video, we were able to take something that was virtually what I would call, a lot of people would refer to as being destroyed, and brought it back around for honestly less than 10 bucks. When you look at the price of each of the heaters and the transistors, thermistors, I'm sorry, the heater and a thermistor, when you look at the price of those, plus a new nozzle tip and a piece of Bowden tube, you got less than 10 bucks wrapped up in this repair. So now this machine is back up and operational again, ready to produce a lot more parts for me like it has been before the meltdown happened. But you guys, you don't be afraid when you see something like that. Just take it apart piece by piece, attack it systematically like I did, and you can put it right back together just the way it was, and it'll work just as good as it did from the factory, maybe even a little better. Now, when you do stuff like this, you learn a lot about your machine. You learn what is a disaster and what isn't. This particular one is not a disaster now. I'm pretty tickled. You folks get out there and have some fun. Like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can see when I drop another video. And all the products that I used when it comes to little nuts and bolts and Thingiverse things and the parts will all be in the links below in the description. Please check those out. And follow those links to Amazon to buy other products as well. That helps the channel out. I get a 3% commission. I'll be honest with you, a 3% commission. When you go follow one of my links below and go to Amazon and buy whatever you buy, I get a 3% commission, which helps the channel, helps fund some of the things I do here. Because yeah, right now this channel is very young, and it's not a tremendous moneymaker. Yeah, it provides a little bit of income, but not near enough to offset the cost of this hobby. Anyway, you guys don't be afraid to email me. That's down in the description below as well. If you got any questions, I'll answer them the best I can. I'm not an expert. I'm a doer, a taker-parter, and a repairer, and I'm an if it ain't broke, fix it till it is kind of guy. So you guys get out there. Don't be afraid to jump in. Don't let fear rule your life on this stuff. This is Michael, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm out of here.